Welcome, everybody. I'm Wes Warren. I'm here with Greg Stanley. Today's topic, a crisis coming in dentistry. Greg and I have been talking, and all these changes have happened, obviously, in the world with COVID. A lot of different things, have been done economically to help it out, but it's created a set of circumstances that Greg and I, quite frankly, are a little worried about and how it might impact our practices. And as we kind of survey our practices and look at them, we're seeing that maybe 80% are kind of set up the wrong way and could be negatively impacted. So, Greg, would you
Sure.
mind just kind of sharing with everybody what you're seeing?
First thing is that since I've been involved with dentistry, there's always been an issue with profitability. In fact, with DSOs, associates, even just solo doctors, all these things, they make one mistake and pretty soon there isn't money to send kids to school and pay for the rent and all of that. It's a little bit of an unforgiving industry. And we've kind of adjusted accordingly here at Whitehall, and it's always been about keeping it profitable. Well, Wes and I were talking about some of the threats on the horizon, and they're coming straight at profitability.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush. That's kind of what we're seeing. We're seeing a set of circumstances that could really strip a lot of practices of a decent net and really drive it down to almost where you become like a slave to your own practice and its own overhead.
Okay, when Wes and I were talking, we distilled it down to the 5 most likely to wreck your bottom line ideas, okay?
Yeah,
First
right.
one, and we're already seeing our average practice suffer from it in profitability, and that is overnight, we have a 25-year practice with untrained staff, a whole bunch of them. Maybe there was 30 or 40 staff or 20 staff. Overnight, half of them have no idea what's going on. And maybe they have a little dental training. Maybe you put on a little shtick for them, but we're seeing that dentistry isn't getting sold on and on.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is a lot of this was covered up, meaning after COVID, a lot of practices were shut down. Some of them actually shut down for good. And it left a kind of almost an explosion, if you will, of patients entering back into the practices. And we saw a real Zoom effect. And even though we had untrained staff, it just kind of washed over top of us and we did well. We're going to start to see that kind of like the tide kind of floating back and be more normal. And as that happens, and I believe it's going to happen in about a year to 18 months, where the marketplace kind of gets an equilibrium and goes back to normal, you're going to see that this untrained staff, these new people that all of us have basically in dentistry, is really going to affect the practice and its efficiency.
We got 5 things to cover, and this one by itself.
It's bad by itself, but as you see, as we cover these, you add them all up and it's like, geez, this is not good.
2 was the rising cost of all operations, everything about the practice. We're going to see inflation find its way, and it'll all be preceded by you feeling like, boy, I'm lucky I even got some of that. I'm not worried about what I paid for it. I had to wait 4 months for this chair or
Set of gloves,
whatever. I had to wait,
Yeah.
and you're not even worried about what you pay for it. And the aggregate is, wow.
Yeah, we're starting to see that with staff costs. Obviously, those of you that have been trying to hire, I know most of us have seen at least a 10% increase in average new employees, and they're undertrained. So it's kind of like you're getting somebody that doesn't have the training but you're paying 10% more. And you're going to just see that ripple through everything in the practice, from burrs and gloves to compression materials. Everything is going to go up. Inflation is here. So you see staff that aren't quite up to the task. And as patients kind of equalize into the practice and become more normal, with staff costs and other costs rising up, you already are right here with profitability. And you could see that be a challenge, but there's more to come. There's more problems.
A lot of people bailed out in practice. A lot of people retired because they either could, or honestly, with their little bit of savings, some Social Security and the Walmart vest, they went out and made a go of it. I'm out of here, So the rising cost of operations. Number 3, because of the reduced number of staff that we have access to. A lot of doctors are working short staff. Oh, they're overpaying for the ones they have, but that's not the point, right? In this one, it's that they're with too few staff, they can see about a third less patients. And so they're making less money, like you said, while paying staff more. And it's all because they can't sustain the patient flow. Patients are going to sit out in the reception room only so long. So that is a deal breaker by itself.
We see it everywhere, from assistants, especially in hygiene. Not, I would say front desk, not as bad. We're able to hire people. They're not quite trained, but you're able to get bodies there. But in the back office, man, we're really struggling.
Yeah, I want to share something we've observed in offices, and that is people that had incredibly successful marketing. They were able to dial in, some of them through SMC, dial in the number of marketing patients they wanted at what was a fairly affordable rate. But now, with an office full of untrained people, they can't even get those people in the office on the phone. And if they do, they can't sell them anything. In other words, the old standbys, I'll market my way out of this, whatever it is. We're finding out that at ever increasing price for staff that don't know what's going on is you can't fix it with marketing.
Monitoring a lot of practices. Our practices that we work with, we're constantly training them and making sure that the numbers are correct. But people that we interview and talk to and do analysis on their practice, we're finding that their case acceptance on these marketing patients, because of all these factors, untrained staff, few team members, is almost non-existent. And it's so bad in some practices where the practice is gonna erode. The practice is gonna actually slip production-wise in the next year and a half. They're gonna have to cut their marketing budgets, and they're down a day or two in hygiene in comparison to years before, and the practice is gonna retract. Bad scenario with staff costs going up, case acceptance going down, gonna eat the profit of these practices is what's going to happen.
Some people thought, Wes, that the title we put on this presentation was clickbait. It is not. These things are happening, and when you get an aggregate, it's very hard to go forward. Something I want to bring up right now. Some of you hearing this literally need to hit the reset button. It's not fun. It's hard to admit. I spent 20 years building a team with a knowledge base of practice building information, creating all this incredible consumerism, getting 5-star reviews. And now it's like we have the Three Stooges and the Keystone Cops at the front desk or whatever, and they're just slapping and poking and running people off in droves. I get that. I know that's not easy, but that's what we do. And we stand ready to start at the beginning and help you build a culture of consumerism that will turn this thing around and put you back in play. Now, the good news is we haven't forgot what we're doing, and there are fewer doctors out there willing to step up and build a practice now.
And talking with a lot of doctors, Greg, I know that people sitting there realize that their team is grossly undertrained. But I also feel that they have a false sense of security, where we're kind of getting away with it. We're hitting pretty good numbers. There's a right now, there's been enough money pumped into the system. What I mean by that is pumped into our economy straight to the people.
Yeah, that's new.
People have more money than they really kind of ever have, especially the normal person. And they've actually went out and bought dentistry. They actually did the good thing. We would have thought they would have went and got vacations and stuff. But a lot of these people went and got their dentistry done that they needed. This money is going to dry up. The dynamic is going to change. You feel like you're hitting good numbers now. I'm telling you, this money is drying up, and things are going to change. And I give it about 18 months, and it's going to get tough out there. And I really believe our offices need to be prepared.
Yeah, putting it back together is important. Now,
Yes.
here's what some people are thinking, Wes, having talked to doctors around the country. We still get a lot of calls from people about finance. And here's what has got me on edge. We're seeing unprecedented government spending, which really is the printing. I mean, they're hauling in printing presses on 18-wheelers. They are printing and printing and printing trillions and trillions of dollars. It used to be billions. Now it's trillions. That's 1,000 billion. And so we could see inflation. I hope I have your attention, and I'm sorry if this is frightening, but it could not only affect your practice, it could easily wipe out your savings. The only thing you'd have to fight back with is that you could probably raise, if that happens, if we see free fall inflation, where the value of things skyrockets, where you got to pay, $1,000 for something you were paying 50 for before, at least with a practice, you can adjust fees most of the time. That's very possible. But make no mistake, one of the big threats now is that, but statistically in the past, there's been a pendulum swinging. When it looks like that's inevitable, it has finally reversed and swung back the other way. Do I think that's going to happen? I have no idea. I'm seeing things I've never seen, so I don't know. But I would say this, those of you who are sitting by, you don't have a website, or you don't have a digital presence. You've let your equipment, your carpeting, your paint, your everything, your sign, everything is run down, and you're just kind of riding in the last of the production, riding it to the bottom. You've even probably acknowledged you won't be able to sell this office for full price because you're just going to kind of die slowly. Let me tell you, when inflation hits and you're thinking, well, there's Social Security. Yeah, I have Social Security. And right now, a third of it goes for one of my medications. I hate to admit that I need medication, but I do. So if you're thinking, they got me, they got my back, they don't have your back. I've got your back. Wes has got your back. And you listen, and we'll help you get ready for the worst things that can happen.
Number 4.
Or kind of is built around the reminder that staff costs are, somebody say, yeah, staff costs go up, but you got to realize it was already high. It already represented 25 to 30%, in a poorly run practice, even more of your total income.
Right.
So staff costs were already a huge chunk. In fact, if I had my way, inflation would have only hit our cost of burrs and gloves or whatever,
Right.
But it hit staff, and that's like your worst scenario. So that leads to number 5, insurance reimbursement. In other words, is anybody going to throw us a lifeline? Well, insurance companies look at us with inflation's boot on our neck and say, I'm going to throw these guys a line. I'm going to cut them a break. I'm going to raise the reimbursements for all this stuff. I'll have to raise premiums a little bit. They're under constant pressure to hold premiums steady and cut benefits. And let me tell you, in case you don't know, patients always side with insurance. Insurance says $1,000 a year is more than you need. Patient goes, well, I don't need anything now. 1,000's probably too much.
Yeah.
In fact, that's how the insurance companies beat us. Is because the average patient walking down the street, if you offered him a $20 root canal build up in a crown, they wouldn't take it. It's too much money because not sold on it. So insurance reimbursement is likely to stay the same or continue the downward plunge while our costs, our staff costs, continue to rise.
Too much of our practices are reimbursed by insurance. Even those of you that are fee for service, you bill out to insurance and they pay a certain amount. You're getting a lot of your income from insurance. And most of our practices obviously are PPO. They're in network. And when they make changes to how they reimburse her, if this goes crazy, they're likely not going to keep up with inflation. They're not going to match what's going on out there. They're going to be slow to react, and they're going to squeeze you. And so you got two forces working against you. You got all your costs going up, and you're likely to see insurance still hold and actually push down the other side and really threaten really the existence of dentistry as we know it. And this is our real concern, is you've got these environments going on, and you got insurance companies finally going to have
until they have their dream come true. Dental hacks inherit the earth.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's going to happen here. And surviving that, obviously, they'll have to come up with their fees, but it's going to be years before they match inflation.
Make no mistake, in the plans that we have to work with individual doctors on what they can do in response to these things, if some of you are dealt several of these aces, these death cards, it could involve some real, it could be a real wake-up call. We could have to do some things, change the market you're appealing to. We have to introduce things you're not doing now. Maybe you're not even trained for. So there is a solution. We have it. Call us, and we'll put you on the right track.
Each practice is different. Each doctor's skill sets are different. Like Greg, some people are in network deep, a lot of PPOs who aren't. And so really tells us how we need to react. A lot of us, I think the majority of us are dealing with a lot of undertrained staff. Greg and I were talking about having to retrain staff and bring people up to the level that we used to have. Oh, it's kind of tentative. You kind of got to be careful there because they'll just quit, you push them too hard with too much training and too much aggravation, and they go, well, I'll just quit, I'll find somewhere else to work. The balance has got to be just right on how you bring the training into the office.
It's very much like wildlife. Go on YouTube and look at wildlife that have been stressed. Somebody's behind a deer or something with a 4x4, or a little ATC, they can run them. And even though they can outrun the ATC, it stresses them. And in a day or two, they'll die. Staff are that way. If we push them too hard, too fast to come back to the level we were, you're back to where you were. Nobody's working there. My suggestion is first of all, do you believe us? Do you trust us? Do you think we know what we're talking about? Have we lived through this? Yes. So let's get a plan to get your team back up to speed without stressing them so that they bail out. And by the way, if they bail out, they will probably go to another dentist. They go, I don't like dentistry. I'm out of here. That's bad. I'm going to try something else. McDonald's paying $25 an hour, whatever.
Yeah, the idea is get on the phone with Greg and myself, and we'll talk you through a plan here. We'll try to give you 45 minutes of our time at no charge. We won't charge people that are asking questions and want to know how they can set their practice up, what things they can do. You need a real game plan here. We want to give you a real game plan to combat these issues, but we need some information before you get on the phone with us that you gather. The statistics we'll really need to really do a good job here is we're going to need production, collection, the percentage of the practice that comes from insurance, and the percentage that comes from cash. New patient flow, obviously broken out, what percentage of them are referred by other patients versus marketed to the practice. We'll need a marketing overhead percentage, a staff percentage, the overhead, and then the overall net of the practice. These are kind of the simple things that we're going to need to put you on the right track here.
We need to see everything. Out of that, we can tell you if you're strong enough to withstand the next 18 months. I mean, it's coming like a freight train.
Greg, why should they not skip this call?
Well, it's just simple, Wes. You have a license as a sailor, do you not?
Yeah.
It's all about knowing how to get that ship strapped down for a storm. What's flopping loose? What won't withstand the coming blowdown? You could be sitting here unprepared, and we'll help you get prepared. It's what we do. First of all, let's do an assessment. That doesn't cost anything. Profit comes from getting it all right.
Yeah, get on the phone with us, have these numbers ready for us, and we'll tell you exactly where you're weak and where you need to focus.
Some of you really have to hit the reset button. Let's get started. Don't wait for this to finally, by the time this hits your bottom line, we're going to be playing this, it's ninth inning and we're 8 runs down.
Yeah, behind the 8 ball is
Yeah.
what you don't want to be behind the 8 ball. So get ahead of it.
Thanks for listening.